You are not losing faith all at once. You are being led away in inches, in silence, in moments so small they feel harmless. The most dangerous enemy never storms the gates, because force awakens resistance. Instead, he enters through distraction, through the subtle drifting of attention, through the quiet erosion of presence. Temptation does not begin with rebellion, but with forgetfulness, with the mind wandering while the body remains, with urgency dissolving into later. If Satan wanted your collapse today, you would recognize it immediately. That is precisely why he doesn't. He prefers the unseen path, the slow dimming of awareness, the gentle reshaping of habits until discipline feels heavy and neglect feels normal. This is not chaos, it is design. Satan follows a multi-stage psychological blueprint, a sequence of footsteps rather than a single fall, which is why the Holy Book warns not against the destination, but against following the path itself. Spiritual decline is never dramatic, it is incremental, stitched together by unattended moments and repeated compromises. This is not merely about belief, it is about attention as currency, habits as architecture, and identity as the final outcome. What you allow to distract you begins to delay you. What delays you slowly reshapes you, and what reshapes you eventually defines who you are. Inner alchemy begins the instant you perceive this pattern, because awareness fractures its power, and once you see the footsteps beneath your own path, you can finally choose whether to keep walking or turn back. Stage 1. Mental distraction. Loss of presence. The first breach never announces itself as evil. It arrives as absence. The body still performs the discipline, the routine still exists, the structure is still standing, but the mind has quietly left the room. This is mental distraction, the loss of presence, the moment where physical obedience continues while consciousness drifts elsewhere. In spiritual psychology, this is the most underestimated danger, because nothing appears broken on the surface. Yet, distraction slowly dissolves spiritual immunity. When attention fragments, awareness weakens, and when awareness weakens, influence enters unnoticed. This is why distraction is always the opening move in spiritual warfare. Attention is the gatekeeper of consciousness. It decides what enters the inner world and what is rejected. What you focus on repeatedly begins to shape your emotional responses, your values, and eventually your identity. When attention is scattered across impulses, worries, screens, and unresolved thoughts, the self becomes porous. Fragmented attention is not neutral, it is the first surrender. What controls your attention controls your inner narrative, and what controls your inner narrative controls who you are becoming. Loss of presence is not a minor flaw, it is the silent permission slip that allows deeper erosion to begin without resistance. Stage 2. Delaying what matters. Procrastinated discipline. Once presence is weakened, delay becomes effortless. This is where the word later becomes the most powerful weapon ever forged against discipline. Delay does not feel like rejection. It feels reasonable, compassionate, even intelligent. Urgency fades, commitment loosens, and responsibility is quietly rescheduled until it loses emotional weight. Psychologically, delay rewires the brain's sense of importance. What is postponed repeatedly is subconsciously labeled as non-essential. Over time, the nervous system stops responding with urgency at all. This is how discipline collapses without confrontation. Responsibility postponed does not remain intact, it decays. What was delayed yesterday becomes optional tomorrow, and what is optional today becomes abandoned altogether. From the perspective of inner alchemy, discipline delayed is discipline denied, because consistency is the substance from which transformation is formed. This stage builds the bridge to collapse by teaching the mind that intention without action is acceptable. Delay trains the self to trust comfort over commitment, mood over meaning, ease over evolution. Nothing dramatic happens here, and that is precisely why it works. The structure remains visible, but its foundation is being hollowed out one postponed decision at a time. Stage 3. Normalizing the wrong. Moral desensitization, after delay, softens resistance. Repetition finishes the work. This is the stage of moral desensitization, where wrong no longer feels shocking, only familiar. Repetition removes resistance not by changing values but by numbing response. The nervous system adapts faster than the conscience can protest. Guilt fades long before behavior changes, because the mind seeks equilibrium more than truth. To relieve internal tension, justification replaces conscience. This is cognitive dissonance reduction at work. When actions and beliefs conflict, the mind adjusts beliefs to protect identity. The story changes to preserve comfort. What was once questioned becomes explained, then defended, then normalized. Over time, identity adapts to behavior, not the other way around. This is one of the most dangerous psychological reversals in spiritual decline. Instead of behavior rising to meet values, values descend to accommodate behavior. The self no longer asks, "Is this right?" but "Why is this acceptable?" Moral clarity blurs, not because truth vanished, but because repeated exposure dulled sensitivity. This stage is not rebellion, it is acclimatization. And when the wrong feels normal, resistance no longer feels necessary. At that point, collapse no longer requires force, it simply continues under its own momentum. Stage 4. Manipulating divine mercy. Spiritual self-deception. At this stage, the descent no longer feels like danger, it feels justified. Spiritual self-deception begins when mercy is quietly transformed into permission, when compassion is stripped of accountability and reshaped into comfort. The language sounds sacred, but the logic is corrosive. Mercy becomes selective spirituality, embracing grace while avoiding responsibility, clinging to forgiveness while resisting change. This is not faith deepening, it is discipline dissolving under spiritualized excuses. The mind learns to quote mercy while ignoring consequence, to remember compassion while forgetting transformation. Yet true spirituality has never been mercy alone, it has always been balance. Compassion without responsibility produces stagnation, not growth. Mercy is not a resting place, it is a bridge. It exists to carry the soul forward, not to excuse it from moving. When accountability is ignored, comfort becomes the guiding principle, and spiritual language becomes a shield against self-examination. This is the most dangerous illusion, because it feels safe, righteous, even enlightened. But mercy, misunderstood, no longer heals, it anesthetizes. And a soul numbed by comfort stops striving, stops refining, stops ascending. Inner alchemy collapses here not through rejection of the divine, but through misuse of its most beautiful attribute. Stage 5. Weaponized guilt. Paralysis through shame. When comfort finally cracks and awareness returns, guilt rushes in, but now it has been weaponized. What should have been a catalyst for return becomes a force of paralysis. Remorse is twisted into despair, and the whisper shifts from permission to condemnation. You're too far gone. You've already failed too many times. Silence is better than hypocrisy. This is how guilt replaces connection. Instead of driving the soul back toward truth, shame freezes it in isolation. The inner dialogue turns cruel, repetitive, absolute. Guilt no longer refines, it suffocates. This is where many stop acting altogether, mistaking self-punishment for humility. But awareness without action becomes self-sabotage. Insight without movement hardens into despair. Inner alchemy teaches that guilt is meant to sharpen perception, not erase hope. When shame convinces the mind that action is pointless, silence becomes the norm, and silence slowly dismantles relationship with purpose, with meaning, with the divine. This stage feels heavy because it feeds on sincerity itself. The very desire to improve is turned inward as evidence of failure, and yet this is the moment where movement matters most, because action, however small, breaks the spell that shame depends on. Stage 6. Social poisoning. Isolation through comparison. Once inner connection weakens, the fracture spreads outward. Social poisoning begins not with hatred, but with comparison. A quiet measuring of lives, progress, outcomes, and worth. Envy enters subtly, disguised as observation, but it corrodes the spirit from within. Comparison dissolves gratitude because it shifts focus from what is present to what is missing. The mind begins to calculate value relative to others, and resentment quietly takes root. What should inspire becomes a reminder of lack. What should unite becomes a source of bitterness. Psychologically, this initiates social identity collapse. The self no longer feels aligned with community but separate from it. Isolation accelerates spiritual decay because growth depends on connection, reflection, and shared meaning. When resentment fractures community, the individual becomes sealed inside their own narrative. Relationships thin, empathy dulls, and loneliness masquerades as independence. This is not strength, it is erosion. Envy consumes not only joy but belonging, and once belonging dissolves, the soul becomes easier to influence, easier to mislead, easier to abandon its deeper values. Inner alchemy recognizes that comparison is not neutral, it is a solvent. Left unchecked, it dissolves gratitude, corrodes connection, and completes the isolation required for spiritual collapse to proceed uninterrupted. Stage 7. Silent abandonment. Spiritual numbness. The final stage does not arrive with rebellion or anger, it arrives with silence. This is silent abandonment, the state where identity remains but practice disappears, where belief still exists in language but no longer lives in behavior. From the outside, nothing seems broken. You still recognize the truths you once lived by, you still use the same words to describe yourself, but inwardly, something has gone numb. There is no urgency, no struggle, no resistance. Only distance. This is the quiet exit no one notices except you. Spiritual numbness is not disbelief, it is exhaustion. It is the fatigue that comes from years of inner conflict left unresolved, from discipline postponed, from guilt unaddressed, from connection slowly eroded. This stage often disguises itself as freedom. It feels like relief from pressure, relief from expectation, relief from striving. But it is not liberation, it is depletion. When meaning drains away, effort feels pointless. When effort disappears, identity becomes hollow. Belief without behavior slowly loses its gravity, and identity without practice becomes memory rather than reality. Inner alchemy recognizes this stage not as failure, but as a warning signal. Numbness is the nervous system's response to overload. The soul is not rejecting truth, it is tired of carrying it without support. Silent abandonment is not the end, it is the moment before either return or complete detachment, and the direction depends on whether awareness is allowed to speak before numbness hardens into permanence. Reversal does not begin with intensity, guilt, or dramatic declarations. It begins with interruption. The first step is to name the whisper. Awareness dissolves power the moment the pattern is identified. When the thought appears, delay, justification, despair, naming it separates identity from impulse. You are no longer inside the loop, you are observing it. Next comes immediate interruption. Action breaks mental loops faster than reasoning ever can. Waiting for motivation is the old trap. Movement creates clarity, not the other way around. Then shrink the task. One conscious step reclaims momentum because progress is neurological before it is philosophical. Small actions rebuild trust in the self. Consistency over intensity is the law of transformation. Systems change through repetition, not force. A single disciplined act done daily reshapes the inner structure more effectively than occasional bursts of effort. And finally, knowledge becomes armor. Awareness prevents repetition by exposing patterns before they solidify. Understanding how decline operates is itself protection. Inner alchemy teaches that transformation does not require perfection. It requires presence. One conscious interruption is enough to reverse direction. One moment of clarity acted upon fractures the entire sequence that once felt inevitable. If you recognize yourself anywhere in this journey, that recognition is proof you are not lost. Awareness itself is mercy. It is the signal that consciousness is still active, still capable of choice, still responsive to truth. Collapse thrives in unconsciousness, not in clarity. The moment you see the pattern, you are no longer merely inside it. The question now is not whether these stages are real, but which one felt uncomfortably familiar, and what you will do with that recognition. Growth does not demand shame, it demands honesty. Comment which stage resonated most deeply with you and name one small action you will take today to interrupt the cycle. Share this with someone who needs awareness, not judgment. And if you are committed to understanding the psychology of temptation, discipline, and inner transformation, subscribe to Inner Alchemy, where spiritual mastery begins with consciousness, not fear.